Many of the people who come to me for postural help work an office job at a computer. Intuitively, this makes sense. We understand that working on a computer all day leads to a deterioration of one's posture. And while we associate back pain more with a manual labor job or a factory job, we actually do associate it with working at a computer too. In my view, working on a computer really is manual labor, and the fact that we don't think of it that way is part of why it leads to so many problems. Centuries ago, when most men worked manual labor jobs or early factory-type jobs, with work that comprised of repetitive use of tools and machinery, there were guilds that existed. These guilds generated wisdom on how to perform these manual activities in a sensible way, and passed that information on to new workers. If you were going to metalsmith, you needed to learn how to do that properly if you wanted to avoid debilitating back pain and other health issues related to poor posture. Unfortunately, that no longer occurs, so many manual laborers suffer greatly from their back-breaking work. But working at a computer is typically seen differently. It's a white-collar job and not thought of as physical labor. There's some justification for this, since typical manual labor is significantly more tiring than an office job. But I would say the real distinction is that working at a computer can be done in a completely slumped and lifeless posture. You can slide down in your chair, rest your elbows on your desk, and still manage to work your keyboard and mouse. The same cannot be said for digging a ditch. But what I want to get across today is that working on a computer really is manual labor. To sit properly in a chair and extend your arms out in front of you to type on the keyboard and run the mouse is not meaningfully different from working a laborious factory job where you have to make repetitive actions with your arms and manipulate machinery with your hands. We can easily understand why a metalsmith with bad form could throw their back out as they repeat the actions of their job. We can easily understand the benefit of a guild teaching them how to perform their job. Working on a computer requires the same kind of consideration. It is not easy to just hold your arms out in front of you for an extended duration. So why would it be easy to do that and type into a keyboard for hours on end? If you've ever had a job where people are on their computers all day, you will know this. Most people collapse in their chair, or work till their butt is numb, or have to switch between various absurd postures just to prevent the growing pain from becoming too much of a distraction. One way to think about it is that working with your arms forward and your fingers tapping on keys is the equivalent of lightly playing the drums. No one would doubt that playing the drums for hours on end would be a real workout, but for some reason people imagine that working on a computer is hardly different from relaxing. But when done right, working a computer absolutely is a workout. If you work all day on a computer and you maintain the lengthening of your torso and you maintain the widening of your shoulders and proper engagement of your arms, your body will be sculpted into that of a 17th century metalsmith. Now granted, we might not expect bulky muscles to be formed from working a computer, but typing on a keyboard is actually a beautiful body weight exercise. So you should at least have a gymnast's body after years of properly working a computer. Yet instead, we often associate all the worst postural habits, from a hunched back to weak wrists to narrowed shoulders, with people who spend a lot of time on their computer. This is because people do not think about how they're using themselves while on the computer. They have never had a guild teach them how to use the computer, their work machine. People are treating this laborious task as if it's the equivalent of lying in a hammock, when in reality, it's not far from a factory job. The computer is a machine that demands intricate manipulation of your fingers and hands. The only way to do that without harming your joints and your posture is with appropriate support from your back, your torso, and really, your entire body. I can't detail all the specifics of how to appropriately sit and use a computer in one video, but I will give you some starting points. For deeper information, check out the library of videos I have on this channel. First, you want to sit properly, which means sitting on the front edge of your chair so that your sit bones at the bottom of your pelvis are touching the chair, and the backs of your thighs are not. You do not want to move your feet forward as most people do after sitting. You instead want your ankle to be back relative to the front of your knee. From there, we need to organize the torso. We want to pull the iliac point at the front of the pelvis, basically the front corner of the bone that sticks out at the front of the hip, back and up to its highest point. We do that obviously on both sides. Against that, we need to pull the third lumbar vertebra forward and up. Against that, we need to pull the lower ribs back and up. And on top of that, we need to pull the upper torso, say from the upper end of the sternum, forward and up. We certainly need to lift the rib cage up away from the pelvis, but without letting the upper end of the rib cage go back or letting the midsection go forward. Those arching movements will be most people's first inclination. Doing what I've described so far will border on impossible for most people at first. Most people are making the exact opposite movements. They are letting their lumbar 3 go way back and down and slumping, or they are arching their back and letting their lower ribs go way forward. Going against these strong habits is not easy to do at first. And again, I can't go over everything in this video, so check out my other videos for more detail, or book a lesson with me where I can give you one-on-one advice. But just practicing sitting before you even try to work with your hands is a good idea. However, in some ways, having your arms forward will help you to pull the upper end of your torso forward as well, and can make certain aspects of sitting easier. When we use our arms, we want the elbows to be forward of the front of the body, and we want the tips of the elbows to generally point out to the side. We want to keep our shoulders broad, which means pulling the elbows and the upper ends of the arms apart. We also want the elbows to be kept low. Unnecessarily lifting the elbows will produce a number of problems. Following all this advice will be very difficult. Think about it. I'm acting as the equivalent of your guildmaster here. Realistically, if you want to work a difficult manual labor job like working a computer, you need training from your guild. You should have been trained in these things extensively before you started working your job. Since you likely weren't, you've built up bad habits, and you probably need much more significant guidance. I can offer that in the form of one-on-one lessons over Zoom, or you can attempt to train yourself using the videos on this channel. I'll give you one simple exercise to try out. What you do is you sit in a chair. You position your pelvis and legs as requested. You hold a light stick in your hands out in front of you at about the height of your armpit. You want your elbows low, lower than your hands, and the tips of the elbows pointing out. You then pull apart on the stick by pulling your elbows out. While you do that, you lift your rib cage, going back at the lower end and forward at the upper end. You pull your iliacs back and up, and your lumbar 3 forward and up. The idea is that you put all these movements into action simultaneously. The best way to do that is to think over the various directions, and then, when they are clear in your mind, you put them all into action on a 1, 2, 3 count. You start on 1, you're in the middle of the adjustment on 2, and you stop at 3. Video record yourself and see what happened. Where were you at 1? Where did you get at 3? You will likely see that you failed to make certain movements. At first, just try to get 1 or 2 movements going right, but work towards getting them all going at the same time. You do not do reps of this. You do not let go of what you've gained in between attempts. At first, just analyze what's happening. You can also make multiple adjustments in a row to try and get to a better and better spot. The goal is to end up with a back that is flat up to the height of your armpit. Your sternum should be vertically upright, not leaned back at the top. Your head should be projected upward, very much upward and forward. To be clear, if you succeed, you will at first feel horrendous. You will be stretching the fascia in your back and forcing your musculature into major extension. You will think I'm insane, and you will find it hard to believe you could ever sit like this for more than 2 seconds. But remember my entire point. Using a computer is a workout. It is manual labor. Your first day of treating it that way will have you aching like you just moved 20 yards of dirt. But if you stick with it, the feelings will change, as will your body, and you'll be able to sit upright and work the computer in a way that, over time, truly leaves you stronger and looking more and more like a gymnast. What I'm suggesting is really just putting the body into its normal baseline configuration. Your body is likely used to being crumpled and collapsed. You have to rip yourself apart to get back to your full stature. But I assure you that if you properly follow the directions, you will never hurt yourself. You will feel pain, but it will be the pain, not unlike in a massage, of adhesions in your musculature coming apart, of your muscles lengthening, of your body breaking free from the harmful habits you have imposed upon it for years. And remember, even your current habit is not comfortable. That's why people constantly shift and reposition themselves when working for an extended period. Even working for that extended period is something you likely couldn't do when you first started working a computer. To be able to sit until your butt goes numb requires you to deaden your nervous system. If parts of you are going numb during your daily work, it's because there is something wrong with your circulatory system or nervous system. Not that you have a general problem there, but that your habitual posture is one that causes dysfunction in these systems. To change that, you're going to have to wake up what's currently deadened. That can be uncomfortable, truly. If you work an office job and you wonder why your back and neck hurt and your breathing is messed up, it's because you're abusing your body all day long. And really, I've worked many kinds of jobs, from manual labor outside to lightly active work like serving tables to an office job. And I can tell you, everyone at every single job I've worked has complained about back pain, neck pain, and postural problems. This is because every job is manual labor, and if you don't take what you're doing seriously, if you were never taught how to do your job by a guild master, you are going to destroy yourself by working. However, if you take control over how you use your body, if you start thinking through how you move, you can get stronger and more stable every day. You can work a computer for hours on end and stand up looking like an acrobat rather than a sad stereotype. But what you need is a guild master who knows what they're talking about. Unfortunately, most of the advice about posture that is out there is not accurate. They'll often tell you silly things like throw a pillow behind your lower back as if that's going to change anything. So I invite you to return to this channel for more in-depth advice on using a system that works to improve your posture. And if you'd like direct assistance, I do offer lessons done one-on-one over Zoom, where you will video record yourself through Zoom during the lesson. That allows you to see what you're doing. As you gain skill in putting movements together and you take control over your actions, you will see yourself change for the better right in front of your own eyes. It takes time because you have to go up against a lifetime of habits, but anyone of any age can change their posture significantly for the better. Visit my website, mechanicsofpoise.com, for more information or to book a lesson.